لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban bikum. I welcome you back to our class on understanding Shafi'i usul, Imam al-Saqqaf's Mukhtasar Fawa Al-Makkiyya, essential principles for Shafi'i students. This is lesson number 15 of our level 3 class, and we commence with today's lesson, which is on an introduction to the development and literature of the Shafi'i school, understanding the legal framework and nomenclature of the Shafi'i school so that we can navigate the madhab correctly, inshaAllah. In this course, we seek to have a comprehensive understanding of Islamic law. We seek to master scholarly etiquette and ethics and familiarize ourselves with key Shafi'i texts and terminology, as well as to develop enhanced spiritual and intellectual growth. This lesson focuses on an introduction to what I consider to be the main section of the book, dealing with the madhab itself, the books of the madhab, the scholars of the madhab, etc. And then understanding the bibliographical framework of the school in order to navigate the literature and scholars who contributed to the school. And then to understand the development of the school. And finally, to familiarize ourselves with key contributing scholars to the school. Some key concepts to take note of is madhab, right? A school of thought. Mukhtasar, which means a summary of a longer work. A sharh, which is an exegesis or an explanatory work of a shorter work. And a prosopography, which is essentially the development, the historical development of the school, both in terms of its literature as well as its scholars. A question to commence this dars off with is, with so many Shafi'i books and scholars, which opinions represent the school? If one thinks about it, we can have a selection of Shafi'i texts starting from Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala, his students, the likes of Imam al-Muzani. Then you can go much further down and you can look at the works of Imam al-Ghazali, Imam al-Nawawi, Imam Rafi'i, and then the scholars who wrote commentaries on the works of Imam al-Nawawi and the like. And all of these works are part of the Shafi'i school. But the question that we pose here is, with so many books and scholars, which opinions are the opinions of the madhab itself? So that is what we hope to explore in this dars bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And nasalullah al-tawfiq. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the necessary guidance and ability to fulfill this task. Ameen. So to commence with this section of the kitab that starts off speaking with the books of the Shafi'i school, let's start off with the founder of the madhab and just give some brief biographical information about him bi'idhnillah, and then from there we proceed to the development of the school. So we are speaking about Muhammad ibn Idris ibn al-Abbas ibn Uthman ibn Shafi' Abu Abdullah al-Muttalibi al-Qurashi. Notice al-Muttalibi al-Qurashi means that he's from the lineage of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from the Qurashi clan and the Muttalibi family. Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala, Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i, he was born in Gaza in the year 150 Hijri. He was born in Gaza in the year 150 Hijri, which is roughly the equivalent of the year 767 AD, or rather CE it should be. We don't use AD as Muslims. I got this from an older slide that we've been using for many years, alhamdulillah, but rather use CE, common era, than AD. When he was 2 years of age, Imam Shafi'i's mother moved from Gaza to Makkah al-Mukarramah because she wanted him to have connections with his Qurashi lineage, with his Muttalibi lineage, with the fact that he came from the Prophet Muhammad's family, and she wanted him to study the deen of Allah, and Makkah she felt was the place to do that. At the age of 7, Imam Shafi'i had already memorized the Quran. At the age of about 10, He had memorized the Muwatta of Imam Malik ibn Anas, the eponym of the Maliki school of thought. Imam Malik was alive and around at the time. He was based in Madinat al-Munawwara. Imam Shafi'i then went and became Imam Malik's student, meaning he actually went and sat at the feet of Imam Malik and he learned from him. He also learned Arabic, Ulum al-Quran, etc., other subjects as well. And he was given permission for iftar. So technically he was placed in the position of a mufti at the age of 15 years already, subhanallah. As I said, he moved to Medina to learn from Imam Malik, rahimahullah ta'ala, both hadith as well as the fiqh of the people of Medina, the fiqh of Ahlul Hijaz. Bearing in mind that he also learned in Mecca from the likes of his teacher Muslim ibn Khalid al-Zanji. We move on and then we find that Imam Shafi'i also traveled with the Hudayl tribe for a few years. He went back and forth to Yemen. He learned the eloquence of that tribe. He learned poetry. He traveled to Yemen. He learned horsemanship, debating. He learned archery, etc. And he also praised medicine. I'm not sure how much of medicine he actually studied, but he praised the study of medicine quite a lot. He went to Iraq twice. He learned the fiqh there of Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani, one of the two major students of Imam Abu Hanifa. Now we have to pause at this point because this is very unique in light of the time that we are speaking about. Fiqh at the time was largely regional, meaning that you had certain legal trends developing in one region like the Hijaz, and that trend was known, or rather became known as Ahlul Hadith, because of their predominant reliance on narrations of the Prophet Muhammad, narrations of the Sahaba, narrations of the Tabi'een, etc. And then you find the fiqh of the people of Iraq, which became known as the fiqh of Ahl al-Ra'i, because of their methodology, with the distinction of having a sort of a hypothetical approach to law, looking at hypothetical circumstances and then dealing with them using intellectual application. Specifically, the term ra'i apparently comes from the usage of the expression ara'ayta. Like, ara'ayta, have you seen? What do you say? What's your opinion about this? What do you say if this happens? What do you say if that happens? Ara'ayta. So this was an application of this scholarly ability on the legal text to arrive at rulings. So these two methods, right, not to say that the two were completely distinct, they had specific characteristics in each school. Imam Shafi'i was essentially the first to study both methodologies by traveling from the one school to the other school and learning and mastering the science or the approach that they had to Islamic law. So he learned the fiqh of Ahlul Hadith from Imam Malik and the scholars of the Hijaz. Then he learned the fiqh of Imam Abu Hanifa or Ahl al-Ra'i from Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani in Iraq. He then combined what he had learned up until this point, and when I say combine, I mean he took what he had learned up until this point rather, and then he taught this in Iraq with a method that we now call his madhab qadim, meaning his oldest set of opinions. These were taught to students in Iraq, the likes of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, rahimahullah ta'ala. So now we can see we've come full circle. Imam Shafi'i was the student of Imam Malik, the student of Imam Abu Hanifa, and the teacher of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, rahimahullah ta'ala, very central in terms of the development of Islamic law. In the year 199-200 Hijri, Imam Shafi'i then relocated to Misr, to Egypt. This was the last 4 years of his life, alayhi salatu wasalam, and in this period, he refined and revisited and revised issues within his school and retaught it to students there, the likes of Harmala, Buwaiti, Muzani, Rabi'. We'll speak a bit about them shortly, inshaAllah. And this is what we refer to as the madhab of Imam Shafi'i. And in terms of the technical terms, this would be his madhab jadid. Right? This would be his final set of views. This would be the madhab as we know it today, with a few exceptions that may become clearer later on, inshallah. Imam Shafi passed away at the age of 204. Sorry, he passed away at the age of 54 in the year 204. He was born in the same year that Imam Abu Hanifa passed away in 150, and he passed away in the year 204, rahimahullahu ta'ala. So what can we say about Imam Shafi'i? He was extremely intelligent. He was a master of javelin and I think archery as well. He's described to have had a 10 out of 10 accuracy rating. He had a loud and eloquent voice. Often people said that his speech, had he written in the same way that he had spoken, then few people would have been able to access his writing because he had a very eloquent way of speaking. And still, when we read the works of Imam Shafi'i, we find it to be extremely eloquent, to the point that his language, his writing, his poetry, etc., is often cited as a source of proof for philologists, those who study the language, the Arabic language. His words, his writing, his composition, etc., is often cited as a source of proof. He wrote a compilation of poetry referred to as the Diwan of Imam Shafi'i, rahimahullah ta'ala. As stated previously, some of his scholarly endeavors includes joining between the legal trends of Ahlul Hijaz, known as the Ahlul Hadith, and the legal trend of Iraq, known as the Ahlul Ra'i, and he essentially merged those methodologies and presented what we know today as the Shafi'i school. In addition to that, he's also been credited to be the first who officially authored a dedicated work to the subject of Usul al-Fiqh. This is sort of universally accepted. Few have challenged it though, few contemporary scholars. And his primary work in Usul al-Fiqh is known as al-Risala. This work is still very much valid and beneficial to read until this day, alhamdulillah. But it wasn't the only work on Usul al-Fiqh that he had compiled. He also wrote other works on Usul al-Fiqh, as we'll mention shortly. He was also a muhaddith. He was a scholar of hadith. I wrote my master's on the career of Imam Shafi'i as a muhaddith and his hadith contributions and his status as a muhaddith, because often we overlook the fact that he was a significant scholar in terms of hadith because of his contributions in fiqh and usul, largely overshadowing his contributions elsewhere, where giants had also sort of cast a shadow over his contributions there. Yet we find that Muslim and the four Sunan narrate from him. We find that his credibility as a narrator, as far as hadith is concerned, as I don't know of anyone who has an issue with Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala. In fact, some include him as part of the silsilatu dhahabiyya, or the golden chain of narrators, which is usually Malik from Nafi' from Abdullah ibn Umar, but then from Malik, Imam Shafi'i, and then from Imam Shafi'i, Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Scholars have also sort of added them to the golden chain of transmission as well. We also find that some of Imam Shafi'i's contributions to hadith criticism, right? Hadith criticism, narrator criticism, are still the standards utilized today. Walillah alhamd. Imam Shafi'i also knew the science of qira'at. Some of his famous works, his magnum opus, would in all probability be Kitab al-Umm, which is a 7-volume fiqh book today. And today it's also a compilation of all of his works, not just the He wrote his al-Hujjah, Kitab al-Hujjah, which represents his madhab al-Qadim, or his older views. He also has a Musnad and a Sunan attributed to him. This was not compiled by Imam Shafi'i, but by others like Al-Asam, who looked at the and based on the ahadith that Imam Shafi'i utilized therein, compiled a work on hadith dedicated to Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala. He also wrote a book on ikhtilaf al-hadith, the science of dealing with apparent contradictions in hadith, which is also the first book on this subject. And then other monographs in usul al-fiqh, such as Ibtal al-Istihsan, showing that or arguing that this concept of istihsan is in fact null and void in our sacred law, and Kitab Jima' al-Ilm, in which he also deals with, I would call it a bit of hermeneutics and a bit of legal methodology and a bit of hadith. Essentially, it's a book of usul, but it contains those aspects, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. So now that we've looked at the founder or the eponym of the school, it's important for us to gain some clarity on some things that people often overlook. Being the eponym of a school, saying that it's the Shafi'i madhab, by no means does this entail that it is exclusively the opinions of Imam Shafi'i or the books of Imam Shafi'i or the answers of Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala. The eponym of a madhab means that the entire legal school is attributed to the founder or the person after whom the madhab is named. Why? Because he laid the foundation of the school. Now, Imam Shafi'i is that mujtahid in the case of the Shafi'i school. Not only did he compile his legal theory, so his set of legal theory in the form of al-Risala and the other works that we mentioned, but also the application of that legal theory in the form of furu', the evidence for those furu', and a complete encyclopedic work of his thought. This was unique for no other madhab had achieved this, alhamdulillah, by the very founder of the school, where he himself, authored these works. Often these works in other schools were authored and compiled by those who came later. So this means that there are stages in the development of a particular madhab, and in the case of the Shafi'i school, there are certainly stages in its development, which we will look at right now bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So the first stage is marhalatut ta'sis, right? The stage of creating the foundation, creating the framework of the school. The second stage is marhalatul bina wa tatawwur, the stage of building upon that foundation and development of that foundation. The third stage is marhalatut tasnif al-mustaw'ib, the stage of writing comprehensive works, right? Comprehensive works that really covers the length and breadth of Islamic law. The fourth stage is called marhalatut tarjih, where now after all of the comprehensive works are there, we now need to sift through them and decide which opinions represent the Shafi'i school and which opinions are not representative of the Shafi'i school, which opinions are the primary opinions of the school, which opinions are secondary opinions or weak opinions of the school. So that is the process of tarjih, or giving preponderance. The fifth stage of the development of the school is called marhalatut tahqiq, in which we now build upon the tarjihat, because now we need to include things that weren't included before, deal with issues that were not dealt with before, and make tarjih, or give preponderance where it was not done before. And then finally we see marhalatul shuruh al-minhaj, the stage of commentaries on the minhaj of Imam Alawiy rahimahullah ta'ala. And these are the basic stages of the development of the school. You may find them somewhat differently elsewhere, but these are the stages that we've decided to go with for our purposes here, alhamdulillah. So now let's look at the prosopography of the school, which is essentially the intellectual development thereof, as we've explained before, now in the diagrammatical format, insha'Allah ta'ala. So right at the top we have Imam Shafi'i, you see in brackets the date of death, and he represents marhalatut ta'sis. It is this stage that creates not only the fiqh of the school. We're not only dealing with the furu' or the do's and the don'ts of the school. How do you make wudu? How do you make istinja? How do you perform salah, etc. But also the legal foundation of the school. What is going to be considered evidence in the Shafi'i school? What is not going to be considered evidence? How would the Shafi'i school deal with qiyas? How would the Shafi'i school deal with qiyas al-Awlawi, qiyas al-Musawi? How will the Shafi'i school deal with weak ahadith, mursal ahadith? All of these issues are dealt with in legal theory. So Imam Shafi'i, he laid the foundations for that, and he also wrote the details thereupon. So that in essence is the first stage, the foundation stage. As you can see, Imam Shafi'i, he taught his madhab qadim, or his older set of opinions, to the likes of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Abu Thawr, Al-Hasan ibn Muhammad al-Za'farani, Hussein ibn Ali al-Karabisi, and you can see the corresponding death dates. This was earlier on in his career, rahimahullah ta'ala. As you can see, some of them passed away I mean, they're all living in the same time, but this was earlier on in his career in Iraq, right? Al-Iraq, you can see in brackets over there. His al-Madhhab al-Jadid, or his new opinion, his final school, this is what he taught when he moved to Misr, to Egypt. Here, he taught the likes of Abu Yaqub al-Buwaiti, Rabi' ibn Sulaiman al-Muradi. He is Rawi al-Risala wa Kitab al-Umm. He is the one who transmits to us the Risala as well as the Kitab al-Umm, Imam Shafi's magnum opus. Interestingly, the scholar whose works really took the madhab forward was that of the following person, al-Muzani. Imam al-Muzani, he wrote a Mukhtasar. A Mukhtasar is a summary, and it was a summary of the works of Imam Shafi'i. Now understand that Imam Shafi'i wrote his Kitab al-Umm, but it's an encyclopedia. An encyclopedia is not meant to be studied by students who are learning Islamic law. Islamic law is generally taught with a short, concise text that is comprehensive, and then a student would read encyclopedias or explanatory notes on that text to understand it. But the reason for the brevity in terms of the text itself is in order for the student to be able to cover the entire text within a relatively short period of time and memorize it as well, really know it well, without needing to go to an encyclopedia to figure out the answer. Yet still the student would read the encyclopedia to develop depth about any particular point. So when we write or when we look at the development of a school, it's not the encyclopedic works that are actually taught. You don't find, even in the world today, we don't find that you can go to a scholar and say, look, you want to read Al-Majmu' Sharh al-Muhadhab to learn Shafi'i fiqh. I'm sure that you can find a scholar to read Al-Majmu' Sharh al-Muhadhab too, because it's a very well-known and popular work. But you're going to ask a scholar to read the Minhaj, or even a shorter work. The Minhaj is a very high-level short work. But the same principle applied there. So had it not been for Imam al-Muzani writing a concise work, a summary work of Imam Shafi's chances are far less that the madhab would have proliferated as it did. Because Imam al-Muzani's work is a very concise work, right? And it was this work that goes on now to take the madhab further, because it is this work that students are studying. They're not studying Imam Shafi's they're studying the Mukhtasar of Imam al-Muzani. And for many laymen, this is a confusing point that we read. We say we follow the Shafi'i school. Imam Shafi wrote a book on fiqh, but we don't read his book on fiqh. Most students of the Shafi'i madhab, as far as I know, barely even open up Kitab al-Umm, except when they get to much higher levels just for the sake of reference. So how is that you're studying the Shafi'i madhab, but you're not reading Imam Shafi'i's works? And this lesson, inshallah ta'ala, will clarify that. So now you can already see Imam al-Muzani's work is the one who takes the madhab forward. What does it represent? It represents Imam Shafi'i's madhab. But it's Imam Muzani's words that captures Imam Shafi'i's madhab in a way that's suitable for it to be transmitted to the next generation. So now, another student of Imam Shafi'i at this point is Harmala ibn Yahya. But the two most significant in terms of the transmission of the madhab would be Rabi' ibn Sulaiman al-Muradi and Imam al-Muzani, who died in the years 280 and 264 respectively. Now notice the madhab al-Qadim, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, he became an independent mujtahid and essentially, developed the Hanbali school, or it was developed in his name, we can say. As for the madhab al-Jadid, this is transmitted via the Mukhtasar al-Muzani, and then we find that others come along and learn the madhab in this way. For example, you had al-Muhammadun al-Arba'a, the four Muhammads, Muhammad ibn Nasr al-Marwazi, Muhammad ibn Ibrahim ibn al-Mundhir, Muhammad ibn Jarir al-Tabari, Muhammad ibn Ishaq ibn Khuzaymah. So you would recognize some of these scholars' names. They learned the Shafi'i school, but then they became independent mujtahidun in their own right and developed their own schools of thought. Most of the schools of thought, as you know, did not survive, but the Shafi'i school had survived. And we can talk a bit about the reasons for that sometime later, inshallah. As for Imam al-Muzani's Mukhtasar, it was then transmitted to some significant scholars, the likes of Abul Qasim al-Anmati, who became a contributing scholar, transmitting the Mukhtasar of Imam al-Muzani to his student Abu al-Abbas ibn Suraj, another significant figure in the madhab, who transmitted it to his student Abu Ishaq al-Marwazi. So these were the leading figures in the Shafi'i school in their respective periods. After Abu Ishaq al-Marwazi, we find that the madhab splits into two, based on regional study of the school. So there becomes a regional school in Khurasan and a regional school in Iraq. So Khurasan is essentially modern-day Iran, and Iraq is still Iraq, of course. So we have al-Tariqa al-Khurasaniyya on the one side and al-Tariqa al-Iraqiyya on the other side. As far as the Tariqa al-Khurasaniyya is concerned, the madhab was taken forward by Abu Zayd al-Marwazi. Now, Abu Zayd al-Marwazi was the teacher of al-Qaffal al-Marwazi, who became the Shaykh of the Tariqa of this particular branch, al-Khurasaniyya, Qaffal al-Marwazi. We'll get back to the Tariqa al-Khurasaniyya in a moment. We once again move over to the Tariqa al-Iraqiyya, where the madhab was taken forward by Abu al-Qasim al-Daraki. Abu al-Qasim al-Daraki, who took the madhab and transmitted it to Abu Hamid al-Isfarayini. Abu Hamid al-Isfarayini becomes the Shaykh al-Tariqa of this madhab, the madhab of Iraq, right? If I'm not mistaken, he becomes the Shaykh al-Tariqa of the madhab of Iraq. Still the Shafi'i madhab, but this is now a regional school of learning the Shafi'i school. So now you have Shaykh al-Tariqa al-Khurasaniyya in the form of Qaffal al-Marwazi, and you have Shaykh al-Tariqa al-Iraqiyya in the form of Abu Hamid al-Isfarayini. From this point, we look at the student of Abu Muhammad, al-Qaffal al-Marwazi. His student is Abu Muhammad al-Juwayni. Abu Muhammad al-Juwayni. You might not know him by this name, but I think you would have heard about him before. He was Abu al-Ma'ali al-Juwayni. No. He wasn't Abu al-Ma'ali al-Juwayni. His son was Abu al-Ma'ali al-Juwayni. He's Abu Muhammad al-Juwayni. He's Imam al-Qadi Hussein al-Baghawi. I just need to make my screen a bit bigger. Now, so you have Abu Muhammad al-Juwayni. He's Imam al-Qadi Hussein al-Baghawi. We know him as Imam al-Baghawi of the Tafsir. Then his son, Abu Muhammad al-Juwayni's son, you can see they share the same name. His son was Abu al-Ma'ali al-Juwayni, but he's the one who is better known as Imam al-Haramain al-Juwayni. Notice also that at this point we reach a new stage in the madhab. So we started off with speaking about Imam Shafi'i in the Marhalatul Ta'sis, the foundational stage where he laid down the foundation for us. Then we spoke about Marhalatul Bina wa Tatawwur, where the madhab develops. So the madhab develops from after Imam Shafi'i, the Mukhtasar of Imam al-Muzani is a development. And then the madhab gets transmitted via the Mukhtasar of Imam al-Muzani to all of these scholars, right, till we get to the Tariqa al-Khurasaniyya and Iraqiyya, until the Tariqa al-Khurasaniyya meets up with Imam al-Haramain al-Juwayni, Abu al-Ma'ali al-Juwayni, or Imam al-Haramain al-Juwayni. This reaches a new stage of compilation known as al-Tasnif al-Mustaw'ib, comprehensive works. Now we go over to the Tariqa al-Iraqiyya again, where Abu Hamid al-Isfarayini was the Shaykh al-Tariqa. He transmits the madhab to two individuals here, two significant individuals at least, Ali ibn Muhammad Abu al-Hasan al-Mawardi. Ali ibn Muhammad Abu al-Hasan al-Mawardi is probably most well known for his work Al-Hawi al-Kabir. Remember Al-Hawi al-Kabir by al-Mawardi. We've come across his name before and this work before in Imam al-Saqqaf's Mukhtasar Fawa Al-Makkiyya. He also transmitted, Al-Isfarayini also transmitted the madhab to Al-Qadi Abu Tayyib Al-Tabari. Qadi Abu Tayyib Al-Tabari, he wrote a ta'liq, write some notes, some explanatory notes on the Mukhtasar of Imam al-Muzani. Qadi Abu Tayyib al-Tabari, he transmitted the madhab to Abu Ishaq al-Shirazi, and he wrote a ta'liq or some notes on the Mukhtasar of Imam al-Muzani. But now it's important that we understand this here. Imam al-Haramain al-Juwayni, representing the Tariqa al-Khurasaniyya, is the teacher of Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, right? So now take note of the significant figures we're coming across here, because we're going to take this further now. Once again, we are dealing with Marhalatul Tasnif al-Mustaw'ib, the stage of comprehensive compilations. We said we ended off here with Imam al-Haramain al-Juwayni. Now, he wrote a very significant work at this stage. His work was a sharh, or an explanatory exegetical work on Imam al-Muzani's Mukhtasar. So all along you had the Mukhtasar of Imam al-Muzani, which is a Mukhtasar or summary work of Imam Shafi'i's Kitab al-Umm. And only now, at the stage of Imam al-Haramain, does he write a sharh or exegetical work on the Mukhtasar of Imam al-Muzani, known as Nihayatul Matlab fi Dirayatil Madhab. In it, he collects all the views from Imam Shafi'i and all the subsequent scholars down to himself. This is an encyclopedic work, and the first of its kind, essentially, in the madhab after Kitabul We'll get to his student, Imam al-Haramain's student, Imam Ghazali, in a moment. Let's look again at the Tariqa al-Iraqiyyah, where Abu Ishaq al-Shirazi, he wrote two important works, two significant works. He wrote the Tanbih and he wrote al-Muhadhab. He wrote the Tanbih and he wrote al-Muhadhab. So al-Muhadhab is a medium work, and it's essentially a work based on the earlier works in the madhab. The Tanbih is a shorter work, which is also a collection of all the views of the madhab, but he doesn't give any sort of tarjih in here. Whereas in the Muhadhab, it's a significant work, al-Muhadhab, he does give views and he gives some proofs, right? And that's significant because it's going to feature again later. Imam al-Haramain's student, Abu Hamid al-Ghazali. Now, we know him for his magnum opus Ihya Ulumuddin, but many people don't know that he's one of the most significant contributing scholars to the Shafi'i school. His name was Abu Hamid Muhammad ibn Muhammad al-Ghazali, rahimahullah ta'ala. He died in the year 505, and he wrote, among many works, he wrote four or five significant works in the Shafi'i school. He took his teacher's work, the Nihayatul Matlab fi Dirayatil Madhab, which again was an exegetical work, so it was voluminous, and he then wrote three summaries at different levels and lengths. The longest summary was called Al-Basit, the medium length summary was Al-Wasit, and the shortest summary was Al-Wajiz. Again, all of these works were based on the Nihayatul Matlab of Imam al-Haramain. But these are more concise, they are more comprehensive, and they are better presented. Why? Because Imam Ghazali, if you are familiar with his works like the Ihya, you would know that he was extremely intelligent and he had the ability to arrange things in a very logical order. So the Ihya, while it's filled with questionable narrations and the like, in terms of its logical flow, in terms of its structure, it's very comprehensive, and it's unique in that sense. So he does the same thing with the Shafi'i school in the form of Al-Basit, Al-Wasit, and Al-Wajiz. He also wrote another work which he called Al-Khulasa, which is essentially a very summarized work on the Mukhtasar of Imam al-Muzani, but this one was not as significant as the other three in terms of further development. So now we have significant contributions and contributors. Notice Imam Ghazali passed away in 505 and Abu Ishaq al-Shirazi passed away in 476. In the year 623, now by this point, you no longer have clear distinctions between the Tariqa Khurasaniyya and the Tariqa Iraqiyyah, but from a town near the Caspian Sea, we have Abul Qasim al-Rafi'i. He was from the same place that Imam Ibn Majah came from. That's why Imam Ibn Majah was known as Al-Qazwini and is often represented by a qaf. So Imam Abul Qasim al-Rafi'i, he came along, passed away in 623, and he wrote works on top, or rather that was based on top of the works of the scholars that we've just mentioned. So for example, he took the Al-Wajiz, the shortest summary by Imam al-Ghazali of his teacher's work, the Nihayat al-Matlab, and from that he produced two works. He wrote a larger explanation of Al-Wajiz, and he wrote a shorter explanation of Al-Wajiz. The larger one is known by various names. There's Fath, there's Fath al-Aziz, there's Al-Aziz, there's Sharh al-Kabir, there's Fath al-Kabir. There's a number of combinations of how this the name of this work has survived. But be that as it may, it's Imam Rafi'i's work as an explanatory work on the Wajiz. He took that same Wajiz and he wrote a shorter explanatory work, which he referred to simply as a Sharh al-Saghir, right? The Sharh Saghir. He also wrote an independent work, rahimahullah ta'ala, based on all of the previous works that we've mentioned, and on all of his previous works and the previous works of the scholars, and he did this with the intention of really refining everything that had existed before, and he wrote what we now refer to as Al-Muharrar, which is a very significant work because it is the work upon which the fatwa book is based. Right? I'm going to call it that. The fatwa book is based upon this work. This isn't the fatwa book, but the fatwa book was based upon this work. We'll get to that in a moment. We then see, after he contributes these significant works, another scholar comes along. We all know him. His name requires no introduction, but Imam Al-Nawawi, rahimahullah ta'ala, who comes slightly after Imam Rafi'i, and he too contributes to the madhab in a unprecedented way. He took the wasit of Imam al-Ghazali and he wrote At-Tanqih Sharh al-Wasit. This is an earlier and lesser known work that Imam Nawawi compiled based on that of Imam al-Ghazali. He also took the Fath al-Aziz or the Sharh al-Kabir of Imam al-Rafi'i, and he then compiled the very well known Rawdat al-Talibin, which is a beautiful work in the Shafi'i school. In it, he fulfilled the functions of ikhtisar, summarizing things, ziyadat, increasing the issues that the previous works did not deal with, and tashih, refining and rechecking all of the issues. He also wrote a book called At-Tahqiq, which was a mukhtasar that he wrote only up until the Salah of the Musafir, the Salah of the traveler. And it was based essentially on the Majmu' Sharh al-Muhadhab. It was kind of intended to be, if I recall correctly, it was kind of intended to be a summary of the Majmu' Sharh al-Muhadhab in a sense. So it's Mukhtasar Akmal. Akmal hatta Kitab al-Bay. He completed, no, not that one. Tahqiq Mukhtasar Akmal hatta Salat al-Musafir. He completed only till the prayer of the traveler. Al-Minhaj fi Sharh Muslim Ibn al-Hajjaj. He also wrote the Sharh of Imam Muslim's Sahih, of course. That's added here extra in blue. Move over to the next one, we see Minhaj al-Talibin. Now this work is the most significant work in the Shafi'i school. As you can see, Imam Nawawi wrote it based on the Muharrar of Imam al-Rafi'i, as we stated earlier on, which was compiled based on all of the previous works. In it, he made ikhtisar, so again, summarizing what was there previously, ziyadat, adding what was excluded and needed to be added, and tashih, refinement. Imam Nawawi's encyclopedic work, Sharh al-Muhadhab, he called it Al-Majmu' Sharh al-Muhadhab, which of course is a sharh of the Muhadhab, the work that we spoke about earlier on that belongs to Imam Abu Ishaq al-Shirazi, Al-Muhadhab. So Al-Majmu', he completed this work until Kitab al-Bay' and others completed the work thereafter. And Imam al-Nawawi finally, he wrote Tashih al-Tanbih, which again is an earlier, lesser known work, as well as Nukat al-Tanbih. So these are some of the contributing works by Imam al-Nawawi, specifically in the Shafi'i school. If we were to add his other works, then it would be far more than that. Subhanallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward him abundantly and all of our scholars for the excellent work that they have contributed to our learning, to our legacy, and to our turath. Ameen Ya Rabbal Alameen. So now we've looked at the most important elements of the first part of the madhab. Are these the only works? No, certainly not. There are other works as well. Going through this in no particular order here, we see Marhalat al-Tahqiq, right? This is the new stage where now things are being verified and checked and finalized. We see several works in this stage and several scholars as well. We have Najmuddin ibn Rif'ah. He wrote Kifayat al-Nabi, Sharh al-Tanbih, Al-Matlab al-Ali, Sharh Wasit al-Ghazali. And you can see the books upon which it is based as well. We have Taqiyuddin al-Subki, who wrote the Sharh of the Minhaj of Imam Alawiy. And he also did the Takmila, the completion of the Majmu' Sharh al-Muhadhab, who Taqiyuddin al-Subki. And then his son, Tajuddin al-Subki, he wrote At-Tawshih al-Tanbih. He wrote the Takmila, Sharh al-Minhaj li-Walidihi. He wrote the completion of the exegetical work of the Minhaj that his father did not complete, Sharh al-Minhaj there. Then we have Jamaluddin al-Isnawi, who differed with Imam Nawawi and Rafi. Imam Nawawi and Rafi is known as, by the way, Shaykhain or Shaykhan in the school of thought of the Shafi'i school. The Shaykhan is a term that's used in traditional Islam in various contexts, and depending on which context it is being used, it refers to different people. Some refer to Shaykhan, then it would be a reference to Sayyidina Abu Bakr and Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anh. In other contexts, it could be a reference to Imam Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Shaybani and Abu Yusuf. It could be a reference to Imam Nawawi and Imam Rafi'i. It could be a reference to Imam al-Bukhari and Imam Muslim. So it depends, right? And then, so Jamaluddin al-Isnawi, he differed with the Shaykhain and only believed in Akthariya. What does this mean? So this requires a bit of elaboration, which we will do, insha'Allah ta'ala, in the text of the kitab itself. But just looking back, because, when we deal with this the first time, it's almost critical that the student understands the whole picture before getting into the specifics. So let's just look at this picture one more time. Remember, at this stage, this is the previous slide, Marhalat al-Tasnif al-Mustaw'ib, comprehensive works are being written. When we say comprehensive works are being written, we mean that all of the opinions of all of the scholars who have contributed to the madhab and their works are now being collected and written. How do we, as our very first question in the dars had stated, how do we know which opinions among the plethora of opinions in the madhab are representative of the madhab? Because the madhab can only have like one or two official views, and then it has to sift through the other opinions. So Imam Nawawi and Imam Rafi'i are the two reference points of the Shafi'i school, the first two reference points. If you want to know what the madhab of Imam Shafi'i is on a particular point, one does not go to Kitab al-Umm, because that's an early foundational stage work. One does not go to the works of Imam al-Ghazali or Imam al-Haramain. One goes to the works of Imam Nawawi and Imam Rafi'i. Specifically, you go to the Minhaj, which is a combination of Imam Nawawi and Imam Rafi'i's works. Why do we go there? Because as you can see in terms of their contributions, Imam Nawawi and Imam Rafi'i, they did what others before them had not done. And that is, they provided us with what we now know as tarjih. So they gave preponderance to the various views, stating which views actually carry the madhab and which views don't carry the madhab. And that's significant, right? How did they go about doing that? How did Imam Nawawi sift through the opinions available to him and say, this is the view of the madhab? How did Imam Rafi'i take all of the opinions one side and say, that is the view of the madhab? Our scholars have utilized two essential elements. The one is quwwatud dalil, the strength of the evidence, and the other one is akthariya, majority, right? So the one works by a qualitative measurement and the other one works by a quantitative measurement. A qualitative measurement means they assess the evidence, and the stronger the evidence is, that's where the madhab goes. The other is they look at the length and breadth of the school, and if there are, mathalan, 50 scholars whose opinions really represent the school, or they've contributed to that discussion, and 40 opinions says A and 10 opinions says B, then the principle of akthariya or majority would determine that A is the preferred view. Now those are some of the principles upon which Imam Nawawi and Imam Rafi'i made tarjih. But as we just stated a moment ago, other scholars who also made tarjih, they differed and they only looked at akthariya. They didn't look at quwwatud dalil, for example. So this is why Imam Nawawi and Imam Rafi'i, they really are extremely important and special in our understanding, and Allah knows best. Others include Shihabuddin al-Adra'i. These are all significant contributors to the madhab. And you can see some of their works there. Qut al-Muhtaj, Sharh al-Minhaj. We see Badruddin al-Zarkashi. Imam al-Zarkashi, Badruddin al-Zarkashi, again a very significant scholar. He wrote the Takmila, the completion of the Sharh of the Minhaj by Imam al-Isnawi, who did not complete his Sharh. He wrote the Sharh of the Minhaj for himself, meaning he wrote his own Sharh of the Minhaj. He was a khadim of Imam al-Rafi'i and the Rawda. He was considered the khadim of Imam al-Rafi'i and the Rawda. Khadim al-Rafi'i wa Rawda. And this Badruddin al-Zarkashi is a significant contributor to the development of hadith and mustalah al-hadith as well. Then you have Sirajuddin al-Bulqini. He was the teacher of Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah ta'ala. He wrote the Hawashi on the Rawda of Imam Nawawi and the Tashih al-Minhaj as well. Right? That's Sirajuddin al-Bulqini rahimahullah ta'ala. So that was Marhalat al-Tahqiq. Then you have Marhalat al-Shuruh al-Minhaj. So at this stage, scholars are now no longer focusing on writing new independent works on the madhab, but they are now focused on writing commentaries on the existing works and expounding on the existing works. So because the Minhaj, the work of Imam Nawawi and Imam Rafi'i, essentially represented fatwa in the madhab, most scholars then turn their attention to writing on that particular book. So you have, for example, in Marhalat al-Shuruh al-Minhaj, you have Jalaluddin al-Mahalli, one of the two Jalals in al-Jalalain. You have Jalaluddin al-Mahalli, who was the teacher, Jalaluddin al-Suyuti, who was the student, a significant figure in the Shafi'i school. He wrote Kanz al-Raghibin, also known as Sharh al-Mahalli. You have Shaykh al-Islam Zakaria al-Ansari, who is buried in the same building as Imam Shafi rahimahullah ta'ala. He wrote Fath al-Wahhab upon his own Mukhtasar of Manhaj al-Tullab. Right? He wrote a Mukhtasar of the Minhaj al-Talibin. He called it Manhaj al-Tullab, and he wrote a Sharh of that Mukhtasar in the form of Fath al-Wahhab. Then you have someone I consider to be my teacher because I studied this particular book as a Sharh of the Minhaj, Imam Khatib al-Shirbini rahimahullah ta'ala, who wrote Mughni al-Muhtaj, Sharh al-Minhaj. And then the two most significant commentaries on the Minhaj that is referred to when trying to decipher the undeciphered tarjihat or preponderance within the Minhaj is that of Ibn Hajar al-Haytami in the form of Tuhfat al-Muhtaj and Shamsuddin al-Ramli in the form of Nihayat al-Muhtaj. So these two works, the Tuhfa and the Nihaya, their exegesis of the Minhaj is going to be considered more authoritative or the most authoritative among the commentators of the Minhaj, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Now that was, alhamdulillah, a framework for an introduction of the main section of the book, not the entire madhab. We could certainly add parallels to that entire structure, but I found that as a student to memorize a basic structure and then build on that basic structure is more beneficial than to cover as many scholars and books at once as we can and really not retain anything. So my suggestion and my humble request to you is to memorize the main scholars and works and timeline of what we've just covered. Because what we've just covered acts as an introduction to the main section of the book. When we read the text of the next section, as you can prepare for during the month of Ramadan, inshallah, you will find that it takes us through this story in a much more selective fashion. So the way we did it now was a much more comprehensive way where we show the development. We'll see in the text that we jump from one stage to the other stage without necessarily showing the rabt or the connection between the two. So this lesson is going to serve as a foundation for the upcoming approximately 10 lessons or so. And it is essential if you want to benefit from what comes next, inshallah, that you have solidified what has already transpired. So that was a very important milestone for our course, and we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for allowing us to reach this point. In summary, we've given an introduction to the main section of the book. We've now developed an understanding of the bibliographical framework of the school and familiarized ourselves with some key contributing scholars to the school, walillahi alhamd. That means that we've now reached the end of lesson number 15, and what remains is, inshallah, our approach to the month of Ramadan. May Allah grant us, Allahumma ja'alna min utaqa'i shahri Ramadan. O Allah, make us from among those who are saved in the month of Ramadan. And when we return, inshallah, we return with full vigor and with the intention of completing the rest of our course. Barakallahu li wa lakum. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Subhanallahi wa bihamdi. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
La ilaha illallah.